Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 episode number 93 based on novel. So let's start. Luo, he can actually control 10 powerful clones? The king of Ushui was not surprised that there were other clones. After all, when he was in the Chaos Realm, the outside world knew that Luo Feng possessed the art of clones. But from the battle just now, everyone could see how powerful Luo Feng's clone was. Luo Feng, at the first level of God King, was able to fight against opponents of higher levels because of the strength of his physical body. It's difficult to control one of such a powerful body. Normally, he can only perform some stupid tricks, but Luo Feng wants to control 10 of them. Is Luo his strength really close to mine? The Lord of Ushui couldn't believe it. Luo Feng is only at the first level of the Divine King. The mountain guest looked at this scene in amazement. Can he be comparable to this Divine King with a lot of experience at the second level? Controlling 10 clones at the same time is much more difficult than controlling one clone. All the forces on the Origin continent were watching. Strength is gained through fighting, not through bluffing. Snort. In the sky, the extremely huge Lord of Qiankun looked at Luo Feng from afar and said coldly, "I want to see how much power you can exert by controlling 10 clones at the same time. Come on." Each of the 10 silver-clad Luo Fengs was as tall as the sky and the earth, standing in front of Huyang City. Is this city Lord Luo? The guards at the gate of Huyang City and countless citizens in the city looked up at the 10 identical silver-clad figures that were as tall as the sky and the earth, and were extremely shocked. Such a terrifying existence could annihilate billions of lives in one breath. The master is stronger than me. Morosa's clone stood on the tower of the city lord's mansion and watched from afar. I was born from the source of destruction and am a perfect life form. How come I am suppressed by the master at the same level? All of Morosa's moves were granted by the Great Tao of the Origin of Destruction, and his methods were also limited to the Great Tao of the Origin of Destruction. Luo Feng himself practiced the 3 paths of life, destruction, and the fusion of birth and death, and the method of change also enabled Luo Feng to master some means of the origin of matter. He also exchanged many special inheritances in the infinite space of the treasure land, so that he could absorb the wisdom of his predecessors. This is the advantage of a cultivator. The lower limit may be very low, but the upper limit is infinitely high. I hope the master can get better food so that I can reach the second level of the God King as soon as possible. Morosa thought. His advantage is that he can go all the way to the ultimate level of the God King. The disadvantage is that he is very weak in self-cultivation. After all, he has been lying down for a lifetime. Forcing him to practice self-cultivation is a bit difficult for a strong beast. This is also the reason why the 2 ancient countries attach great importance to the Lord of all Realms and despise the realm beast of Qianmu Kingdom. The Lord of all Realms has realized a complete avenue of origin by himself, and he can go one step further and surpass the ultimate realm of the God King. As for the world beasts, the possibility of surpassing the ultimate realm of the God King is negligible. All parties are watching the battle. 10 silver-clad Luo Feng stared at the Lord of Qiankun, also full of fighting spirit. He didn't lie, this was indeed his strongest strength. His strongest strength without using any weapons comes in 2 forms. The first type, controlling the complete world life form, can have an extremely powerful energy reserve, a terrifying recovery energy knife, and each move is extremely powerful and powerful. However, the moves are very stupid and can be easily fooled. The second method is to control 10 clones at the same time. Each clone can exert 70% of its strength, and can also perform relatively ordinary God King level moves, and cooperate with the formation. The power and the mysterious moves are perfectly balanced, which is more suitable for dealing with various difficulties. Of course, when controlling the true body of the world life form, the energy is strong enough, and it is more suitable to use weapons. If the blood shadow knife is used, the power can be increased. If the star tower is used, the strength will be greatly improved. Luo Feng's real body has been practicing in the star tower, and has been studying and pondering it. He only feels that its abilities of suppression, confinement, heaviness, and solidity cannot reach their upper limits. The stronger Luo Feng himself is, the stronger the Star Tower can be. Luo Feng doesn't even understand why the Star Tower is so strong. This was no longer something that could be explained by a Divine King weapon. Luo Feng did not dare to use the Star Tower at all when he was at the first level of the Divine King realm. Boom! The 10 silver-clad Luo Fengs moved at the same time. In an instant, their bodies merged into heaven and earth, and appeared around the Lord of Qianquan state as if they had teleported. Can such an escape technique be performed by controlling 10 huge clones? The heart of the Qianquan king sank, his blood-red eyes became more crazy, and the bloody mouth that occupied 1/3 of the body opened again. Roar? This roar was like the wrath of heaven and earth, a roar of destruction. The roar spread over a wide area, and the mountains were crushed into dust. The earth was also shattered and a huge abyss appeared. The roar also impacted the 10 silver-clad Luo Fengs in the distance. Luo Feng's robes began to tear, but Luo Feng still had a calm expression. He even turned his head to look into the distance. There are few outside the wilderness, and they are widely scattered. Although the creatures are rare. But the roar of the Lord of Qianquan Kingdom had such a wide range that it could still affect a tribe in the distance. That was a tribe of thousands of creatures. This tribe looked at the distance in horror. They saw the black ripples formed by the roar. The black ripples swept over like waves of heaven and earth, carrying with them a sense of endless destruction. Father! The children were crying in fear, and the true gods were watching this scene in despair. As Luo Feng watched, the power of the world enveloped the entire tribe, completely moving all the tribe's buildings at once to a wilderness closer to Huyang City. You're still distracted while fighting with me. The Lord of Qianquan was shocked and angry. The sound waves from his roar swept in all directions and then returned to the battle area to continue transmitting. The Lord of Qianquan Kingdom shook his wings and pounced on one of Luo Feng's clones. 10 Luo Feng clones took the initiative to surround them from all sides. Bang! During the first clash, one of Luo Feng's clones stumbled back a few steps, but the other 9 clones had already surrounded and attacked. Row! The Lord of Qianquan flicked his tail. A flash of light, the world seemed to be in two. Luo Feng was still prepared. One of the clones was split into 2. However, the other clone, despite being severely injured, held onto the tail. The clone that was split into 2 healed in an instant and returned to its original state. Die? One clone held onto the tail tightly, and the other clones attacked one after another. Roar, roar, roar. The Lord of Qianquan roared, and the sound waves came one after another. The sound waves that had roared earlier had already returned, and at this moment, the sound waves continued to overlap, forming a vast sound wave field. Each of Luo Feng's clones moved with ghostly movements, as if walking in darkness, and they were all extremely brave and resisted the impact of the sound waves. Die? The wings of the Lord of Qianquan Kingdom shook violently, and golden swords flew out from the depths of the wings. Hundreds of golden swords were extremely sharp, and they pierced through Luo Feng's many clones and made holes in them. However, for Luo Feng's body, which was as tall as the sky and the earth, these holes were too small and insignificant, and they healed in an instant. Reincarnation of life and death. One of Luo Feng's clones clung to the tail of the Qianquan Lord and refused to let go no matter how hard he was beaten, limiting the most damaging killing move, Sky-breaking tail. The other 9 clones used the life and death reincarnation formation to frantically besiege the Qianquan Lord. The Qianquan Kingdom was huge in size, dragging Luo Feng by its tail, and was still extremely powerful. There were bursts of roars, and the sound wave field was constantly attacked by hundreds of swords, severely injuring Luo Feng again and again. The wings with a wingspan of 300 trillion kilometers flapped wildly, destroying the world. Occasionally, there would be a great extinction golden light attacking his head. But even though Luo Feng's 10 clones were covered in wounds, they still carried on with their injuries and attacked frantically. Luo Feng's body was too strong, and even if he used some God King level moves, the multiple clones combined to tear off pieces of flesh and blood from the Lord of Qianquan. Scales flew everywhere. Flesh and blood were dripping, and there were many wounds. The Lord of Qianquan was also recovering from his injuries. Are all his 10 clones so difficult to deal with? The Lord of Qianquan also felt uncomfortable. He felt that each of Luo Feng's clones was definitely at the Overlord level and even more difficult to deal with than the Overlord. This scene left all parties silent. The Lord of Qianquan and the 10 clones of Luo Feng were all seriously injured and fought each other frantically. But they knew very well that they dared to do so because both sides were very strong in their physical bodies. The Qianquan king is famous for his strong body. How could Luo He fight him without any fear? Can a divine king at the first level be this strong? The battle area between the two sides, the sonic field. Enveloped, the power of the world spread, the aftermath of the battle spread, destroying the world. Call. In the darkness, the Lord of Qianquan suddenly retreated, and with a flutter of his huge wings, he disappeared from the spot in an instant, dragging the clone of Luo Feng with him and escaping to a far place, far away from the other 9 clones of Luo Feng. Stop! The Lord of Qianquan said in a low voice. Luo Feng's clone also let go of the huge scaled tail that he was holding tightly. This tail was too powerful, but once it was held, the threat was greatly reduced. Call! Luo Feng's other clones also teleported to the nearby area, still surrounding the Lord of Qianquan state. All the scars on the 10 Luo Fengs disappeared, and their clothes were restored to their original state. The wounds on the Lord of Qianquan were healing, and his scales had all grown back. Neither side seemed to have any injuries. You said stop, so stop. 10 Luo Fengs looked at him. The Lord of Qianquan looked at the 10 Luo Fengs around him and said, I admit that you have the ability to intervene in this matter, and the 2 countries will cease fighting from now on. You want to start a war, then you start a war. You want to stop the war, then you stop the war? Luo Feng looked at him. Before, you wanted to destroy my Huyang city, but now you want to pretend that nothing happened? The Lord of Qianquan looked around and asked, what do you want? Lord Qianquan, you said it yourself that some things must be done at a price. 10 Luo Feng stood there as the power of the world spread, and its scope expanded rapidly, spreading greatly from the center of Huyang city to the scope of Chaosha kingdom, fully covering the surrounding 10 chaos states. Luo Feng's world life form, the power of his true world, can cover 16 chaos. The 12 chaos states in the food kingdom were also covered to varying degrees, some were 100% covered, and some were only 1/3 covered. Luo Feng selected the 10 nearest territories. The Lord of Yushui gave me 10 territories. Shigua, I will also take 10 territories. 10 Luo Fengs looking at the Lord of Qianquan will be the price for you to eat the country. If you agree, then we will stop fighting. If you don't agree, then we will continue the war, and I will occupy the territory with my own ability. 10 chaos states? Qianquan State Lord looked at Luo Feng, are you sure? Do you think I'm asking for too much? 10 Luo Fengs also stared at the Lord of Qianquan. The Lord of Qianquan State could feel the will of the law, her God King. How did he get involved in the matter between me and Lord Yushui? And he is so difficult to deal with. Lord Qianquan was quite troubled. In terms of real swords, he was not afraid of Luo Feng. In fact, his power was even better. He could fight if he wanted to, and leave if he wanted to. Luo Feng couldn't stop him. However, Luo Feng's 10 clones wanted to attack Shigua, and he couldn't stop them either, because he was just one real body. He runs a huge second-rate country called Shigua, which has tribes and many followers. Luo He, on the other hand, has no ties, as the 10 chaos states he has just acquired were also given by the Yu Kingdom. Those who are barefoot are not afraid of those who wear shoes. The ruler of Qianquan State is the one who wears shoes, and he has a large territory. Luo Feng was barefoot, had little territory, and had nothing to worry about. He even had only one disciple. Really fight? Can the food kingdom bear it? Okay. The Lord of Qianquan looked at Luo Feng with bloodshot eyes. This time I underestimated the God King Luohe. I didn't expect that the God King Luohe was only at the first level of the God King realm, but he had such terrifying strength. These 10 chaos states are my apology. The Lord of Qianquan is quite straightforward. Luo Feng nodded. We will be neighbors from now on, and we will have to deal with each other frequently. HMPH. The king of Qianquan also felt a headache. Originally, he had a headache because of the second-rate country, Yu Kingdom, next to him. After all, he could arbitrarily annex some third-rate countries, but when facing opponents of the same level, it was not so easy to deal with. In the eyes of the Lord of Qianquan, the force led by Luo Feng was more difficult to deal with than Yu Kingdom. Call. The Lord of Qianquan Kingdom flapped his wings and disappeared across the sky and the earth. The 10 silver-clad Luo Fengs, who were as tall as the sky and earth, disappeared in an instant. It's over. I didn't expect that this Luo Divine King is actually a being comparable to the Lord of Qianquan. Another overlord who is not easy to mess with has appeared in the origin continent. All the forces watched and realized that Luo Feng was not easy to deal with. Any of Luo Feng's clones could withstand the killing moves of Qianquan King without much loss. The only way was to be swallowed into the stomach, or Luo Feng would explode on his own initiative. Otherwise, relying solely on the stomach's erosion, it would be impossible to kill the clone. My disciple is actually comparable to the Lord of Qianquan. The hermit's eyes were red, because he was too emotional. You can go meet Luo Feng. Huyang City, City Lord's Mansion, on a pavilion. Brother Luo He, thank you so much. The incarnation of the Lord of Yushui came, quite excited. Luo Feng's strength was beyond his expectations, and the matter was resolved too smoothly. If Luo Feng was a normal god king of the first level, there would be many conflicts in this matter. It's a small matter. Luo Feng smiled and said, Brother Yushui, I heard that your true body is in the treasure land, Jianhe. You have to be careful. Although they are outnumbered, I am not that easy to bully. The Lord of Yushui was quite confident. Brother Luo He, you have to be careful too. This time, you have offended the Lord of Qianquan because of me. With his temper, he will not give up easily. If you encounter trouble, just call me at any time, and I will definitely come to help. Luo Feng smiled and said, Brother Yushui may not know that I just asked for 10 chaos states from the Food Kingdom as their compensation. He negotiated with the Lord of Qianquan, naturally isolated from the outside world. Ah? The Lord of Yushui was astonished, asked for 10 chaos states. Since I have offended you, I will offend you more severely. Luo Feng smiled slightly, then looked at the direction of the Food Kingdom in the distance. From now on, the Food Kingdom and I will be neighbors, and there will be a long time to fight. If you need help from Yu State, feel free to call us. The Lord of Yushui State responded. This time when Shi State invaded, Luo Feng chose Yu State without hesitation, which touched the Lord of Yushui State. There is no doubt that in the future, when facing Shi State, Yu State will definitely stand on the side of Luo Feng's forces. In the capital of Shi State, in the palace. Big Brother. Lord. The other 4 god kings of Food Kingdom all looked at Lord Qianquan. The power of the Luo world enveloped the 10 chaos states of my Food Kingdom, claiming that the 10 chaos states belonged to him from now on, and asked the chaos realm to quickly migrate away within a day. Wuxiang Patriarch said anxiously, Brother, we just giving up the 10 chaos states? If we don't, do you think Luo will stop the war? Lord Qianquan sat on the main seat and looked at Wuxiang Patriarch coldly. His 10 clones rushed into Food Kingdom. Which one of you 4 can stop? The 4 god kings were stunned. They had seen that each of the 10 clones was very terrifying. If we really fight, the whole Food Kingdom will not be safe. The Lord of Qianquan shook his head. Although he has 10 clones, you still have the upper hand in the fight. The Sword Demon God King said, if we really fight, he will lose. I can't outlast him. The Lord of Qianquan said. The Wuxiang Patriarch, the Sword Demon God King, the Liu God King, and the Skull Peak God King were all stunned. His huge body has a strong recovery ability, and it seems to have its own source of life. He recovers while fighting. Just now, his energy reserves have not decreased at all. The Lord of Qianquan said, even if I have the upper hand, I can't destroy one of his clones. He is more difficult to deal with than the Lord of Yu. The Lord of Qianquan shook his head, don't provoke him again before you have a way to deal with him. Yes. The four god kings looked at each other and could only answer obediently. Even their own king admitted that if they could not kill one of Luo his clones, then there was no way to fight. The Lord of Qiankun immediately stood up and left. Soon, in the treasure land, Sky River, the Lord of Qiankun arrived here in more than 10 breaths. An infinitely wide and endless sky river swept through time and space, swept through everything, and rushed forward. The power alone was enough to make the god kings tremble. This is a treasure land that is more valuable than infinite space in the eyes of the outside world. Especially for practitioners of the water attribute muddy source bloodline, they attach great importance to this place. The Lord of Qiankun transformed into his true body and merged into the water of Qianhe River. The river water naturally washed this huge body and cleansed it. Just wandering in it is practicing. You can't deal with Luo He? The Lord of Qiankun used the cause and effect to send a message to the other 5 friends. This time I suffered a big loss. He insisted on taking 10 chaos states. You can't even wipe out one of his clones, so we naturally can't do it either. And I can confirm through the cause and effect that he has hidden clones in Huyang City, Chudu, and Xiangjie City. 10 clones. I'm afraid it's not his limit. His explosive strength is inferior to ours. But he is too difficult. Several powerful beings were afraid of Luo Feng and were unwilling to provoke such a strong enemy. They can reach a consensus on dealing with the Lord of Yushui and join forces with each other. However, they have no consensus on dealing with Luo Feng, and no one is willing to fight Luo Feng. Since the outside world can't force Lord Yushui, we should find a way to completely eliminate him in Qianhe. The 6 of them are still patient. Practitioners of the water-attributed Han Yuan bloodline. The biggest threat to them is Lord Yushui. Lord Yushui is too adapted to Qianhe, and his ability to obtain treasures is far beyond theirs. Of course, they have to join forces. Yangfeng Ancient Country, Polu City, Polu Mountain. Master. Zhong Yunj was summoned by the God King and came to see him excitedly. It had been so long. This was the first time that the master had summoned him. Yunj. God King Polu looked at Zhong Yunj with a smile. Brother-in-law had just became the God King, and now he is fighting against the Lord of Qiankun, and he is not at all inferior. I am going to congratulate him. You can go with me. God King Polu was in a good mood. Zhong Yunj's heart trembled. Congratulate God King Luoha? She will go with him? You've been up the mountain for so long. You can also meet up with Mo Yu Qingyang when you go back this time. God King Polu said with a smile. Zhong Yunji hesitated for a moment, but did not dare to hide it. Master, Qingyang and I have separated. Separated? God King Polu was a little confused. I became Master's disciple, and I practiced with all my heart. I didn't want to be disturbed by other things. So I separated from Qingyang. Zhong Yunji said respectfully. God King Polu's eyes turned cold. As an invincible existence at the first level of God King Polu, who cultivated the Han Yuan bloodline, treated all living beings kindly at ordinary times, but he was also polluted by the residual bloodline will, but he was able to control it completely. At this moment, anger surged, and the invisible evil spirit naturally spread. Zhong Yunji felt that his soul was trembling, and his mind was empty. Idiot! The Polu God King shouted coldly, and then he flicked his sleeves and summoned invisible waves to carry Zhong Yunj, directly moving out of Polu Mountain. When Zhong Yunj regained consciousness, she found herself in Polu City. She looked around and saw the holy land of Polu Mountain in the distance. I was expelled by my master? Zhong Yunj couldn't believe it. You are not allowed to go up the mountain without my permission in the future. The master's voice rang in her mind, like a brand imprinted in her soul. Zhong Yunj was shocked. She thought that her master was a direct disciple of Emperor Qing, a dominant existence on the origin continent, and his reputation was far-reaching. The master was willing to preach to all living beings, so how could he care about her feelings? Stupid, master called me stupid. Zhong Yunj will never forget that scolding. Master is such a being who saves all living beings, but he scolded her, which shows how angry he was. I was wrong. Jong Yunj looked at the Polu mountain from afar and felt cold. I thought Master was willing to help the weak and preach to countless weak people. He was merciful to all living beings and was very different from us eternal true gods. But I was wrong. Master and his people are just like the eternal true gods. They will also make friends with the strong and have conflicts of interest. This video will end here.